Okay, and welcome back. And again, for those of you just joining, welcome. So, in the final session here, what we're going to talk about is syncing. You know, syncing, the importance of syncing, why you should sync, how it works, and yeah, all that fun stuff. I guess the first thing is, how do you sync? So, right off the bat here, like earlier, we did add a sync button. Many of you may have this sync button, and I could click this or file, synchronize files. And what this will do is once I click this, it's going to say, do you want to save your changes? Sure. And it's going to close down my map. And open the sync, kind of start the sync wizard. A majority of the time, um, yeah, most will just kind of go next, 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 through the windows, and it's going to download what it needs, everything. But we'll kind of go over, what each page means and what it's doing. Um, Intro page here just kind of says, welcome, and right in the middle it says, there is an option that says I would like to change my sync settings. Um, Odds are, you know, if we check that, you're most likely talking to one of us, one of the service techs. That is where, like, I'll just go ahead and check it and hit next so we can see it. This is where the registration and setup is located. Um, yeah, and messing with this portion here could be not awesome. So, it could make it so that it can't sync and potentially, we'd have to get back in and kind of reset a few things. But yeah, this is just kind of telling it. And for those that do, reinstallations or, or with IT and kind of work with us getting maps set up and everything. Yeah, this is basically where sync is told kind of how to work. Yeah, anything that is the program itself, this is just telling it that all those files are in the ThinkGIS folder. And then anything that is a layer, everything is in the county folder. But like I said, I wouldn't mess with that, unless, you're working on a reinstallation or working with us. But yeah, we will go ahead and hit next and move on. So it's going to say downloading file list. It says, so now it says it's ready to sync. So I'll go ahead and hit next. And I get this all the time because I work with so many different counties, and my kind of the group of layers that I'm looking at changes all the time. So, um, I have certain counties of layers that I may own the layer for editing, but it's not there right now, so it thinks it's been deleted. So I get this message all the time. If you get this message, and are curious about this, let us know, and we can take a look at your settings. But yeah, for me this is common, but yeah, for you it might not be. If you start getting this, let us know. So I'll hit OK. So the first page that we come to, like for me, and this is going to be if you're an editor. For those of you that are viewers or view only maps, you may not get this message at all. It'll probably skip right over this page and go straight to this is files to upload. So this is the layers that I own or my registration owns for editing. And as you see, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Because I do, yeah. I help out a lot of different places with a lot of layers. Um, so what this is telling us, though, is this is the actual file name in this column of the layer. Next over is the status column, and this tells us what the status is. And as you see, I have some that are listed as deleted. Many of them are listed as deleted because the county that I'm kind of set for currently is not one of these counties, so it thinks it's deleted, even though these files are on my machine. So the status that you'll normally see, hopefully you don't see deleted much, but you'll see current, Maverick, and modified. Those are kind of the three main ones that you'll see more often than not. What those mean, current means that in this case, because it's on the upload page, current means that I own the layer for editing, and the version of that layer is the same as what's on the sync server. So the copy of the file that's on my computer is the same as what's on the sync server. So it's listed as current, saying, it's good. They're identical. We're just marking it as current. There's no check mark or anything. If I have made a change to one of these layers, then this would be listed as modified and automatically have a check mark saying that it's going to upload this file to sync for everybody else to download. Maverick means that the copy of this file that's on your machine is newer than what is on the sync server. However, you do not own that layer for editing. So if you have been making changes to a layer, and this would actually show up on your download page, if you've been making changes to a layer and you go to sync and you don't see it on your upload page, go ahead and cancel and call us, because it basically means that within sync on our end, that your registration number is not listing you as the owner of that layer for editing. So that will move your layer here. I'll go ahead and hit next. That will move your layer to the download page where it's going to download that layer again, and it's going to overwrite. If you go ahead and sync, it's going to download that layer and overwrite everything that you changed. So that's kind of one of the things to pay attention to if you're an editor, is that if you make changes, double check these, pages to make sure that, like if you're doing addressing and you've made changes, make sure that the addresses are listed on the upload page and listed as modified. If they show up on the download page as Maverick, go ahead and cancel out of sync right here and let us know. That, because if you sync, it's going to override everything. And, and it could be a couple different things. In some cases, there are, people that have, like a laptop and a desktop, and their desktop owns the layer for editing, but they, went ahead, they made the changes on the laptop. When they sync, it's going to say, hey, it's going to be on your download page because the desktop is the one that actually owns it. So we might have to, look into that, and we can help you out with that if that happens. But as we see right here, there's also a status of new. That means that this is a layer that, from this county that is available to me, but I haven't downloaded it. I don't have a copy of it currently. So it's not on my machine. So it's just listing it as new. And you see it automatically has a check mark saying, I'm gonna go ahead and sync that. I'm gonna bring that in. So I'm actually gonna hit unselect all. Because if I went ahead and kicked that off, that would, with this many, because I haven't downloaded most of these layers, that would take quite a while. But you see, like right here, there's a parcel layer that's listed as modified. And, so I've got one modified. I'll go ahead and, I'll go ahead and check it. So it's just going to grab this one layer. So I'll hit next. And as you see, it's just going to buzz through and grab that one layer. And then once it is finished, should just take a second. A second or two. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen the parcel layer. One of the, larger of the layers available. And once it's done, which it's almost there, will give us option to, click next to finish. There we go. And finished. So now, we can open the map back up. And we're back. And, most of the time, you're now good to go. This is all there is to it. And like I said, most of the time it would, for many people it would just be especially viewers. Like if you're view only, you're going to start sync, and then it's just kind of a next, 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 and it's going to download what it needs. On that download page, though, you may scan up and down periodically just to make sure you don't have any Maverick files, because they may or may not download themselves automatically. So you may just take a look and, go ahead and check those and make sure that everything's up to date. Some other things to talk about with sync, and this would be primarily with editors. So if I start sync again, well, we'll just say that, like within your layer settings, that at some point in time you need a layer for whatever you need it for. Like this is, we have a lot of utility stuff here, but like a layer I remember seeing previously was a layer for potholes. They actually sent somebody out with a GPS and a map to essentially document every pothole they could find in the county. And so like if they made a potholes layer, we'd have a, add layer, create layer, basic layer, and I'll just do potholes. See if I could spell pot right. There. I guess maybe the G was silent. Potholes. So now we've got a potholes layer. And I'll just go ahead and we'll do a new feature, and we'll just say, I'll just call it number 1. And we'll just say that, right down here, place a point. There's a pothole right there. file, and save. So if I click here, it just says this is feature 1 of potholes layer. So when it comes to syncing, I can say, oh, I just made a potholes layer. Synchronize. So it's going to, and I had already hit save, so it didn't ask me if I wanted to save, but it's going to start sync. So I would just hit next, next to start and get my message about deleted files, which is fine in my case. So here on your upload page, because this is my layer, as we see, I can scan up and down and we will not find, like, especially if we go to the P's and everything, that should put them alphabetical. There's no potholes layer here. And this is, yeah, we've run into this, many times. When a layer is created, you can sync over and over and over, but you have to tell sync that this layer exists. So, we can sync and, it's going to go right on by just like it, I'll unselect all, next. And even though I just created that layer and it's brand new, it is still not on sync. So and there could be times, I know that myself and many other editors, we create layers all the time. Create layers, use it for a minute, delete it, and we're done. Just kind of, I create layers for, printing purposes. Just, put a boundary around something. And then once we have the print and everything's done, delete it because it's not needed anymore. But if it is something that is needed, and not only is it needed, other people may need to see this. So like this potholes layer, we'll go ahead and start sync again. Let this connect. And I'll hit next. Next, get our message. So here on the layers that I own, and again, as I'm going to go through this, but if there's, at any times, if, you have questions or, you're not totally comfortable with this or anything, by all means, call in. We will help you out with this. But right here on your upload page, all the layers that, that I own for editing, it's not there. My new potholes layer. So I'll go ahead and hit down here at the bottom. There's a button that says add upload files. So I'll click here and, it knows that I'm in this county right now. And, date modified, and here's all the files. It's actually not going to find it here either because I am connected to our server. So if I come to our server and I'm going to find that file, so I know we're in Indiana, Greene County. Okay, and I don't see it there. I thought that. Oh, let's see, because I was not in the Greene County area. See, sometimes this is part of it. I was in a different map. I was set for Greene County for my syncing, but the actual map I was in was local. And normally, it's not quite this hard because, your maps will. I've got stuff pointing all over the place because I'm, looking at so much. Montezuma. There's my potholes layer. So now if I hit OK, click on, say, there's my layer, open. And because I'm currently a member of Greene County, it's going to say, we're going to put it in this group. Now, you may have multiple options here. So for example, if you were, if you work in a highway department, there may be, like if I was in Greene County, there may be a Greene County group, which basically everybody in the county, looks at that group, and that would have like your addresses, parcels, roads, and, everything that's kind of base map that, most people within the county are looking at. But there may be, like, I'll just say Greene County, like a highway group, and they would be the only ones that need to see potholes, this new layer. So that would be listed there as well. If there's a sync group specifically for the highway department, in that case, we would just check that highway department sync group, and not the county, because we just need it to stay in the highway department. Don't need, everybody in the county, doesn't need to see it, wouldn't really mean anything to them. So yeah, just make sure it's in the right group. And then I'm not going to add this to Greene County because everybody in the county doesn't need a pothole on, on one layer or on one road. So I'm going to hit cancel. But if I did hit OK, we would down here, like, in all the alphabetical, down here in the P's, we would have it say potholes.tml, and it would be listed as Greene County over there because I added it to the Greene County group. And it would have a status of new, saying this is on your machine, but it's not on the sync server. We're getting ready to upload it for the first time. This is new. And then once I ran through sync and sync was finished, from then on, anybody, and in this case in Greene County, anybody that syncs their map would get a notification that a new layer is available. Would you like to add it to your map? I would, yeah, and you may see that message from time to time. I would take a look at it. So when it says, would you like to see, this new layer when you open your map after a sync, you might go ahead and hit, yeah, I'll take a look at it just to see what the layer is. If it has absolutely nothing to do with what you're working on, it could be for a completely different department that they're, that they're working on. It doesn't, you don't need it or anything. Yeah, you can just not add it to your map. It is still on your computer. So like if I I'll go ahead and bring up my File Explorer. I'm dragging over here. So if I go with my File Explorer, my ThinkGIS folder. So, again, most people will just have under their ThinkGIS like one folder. I've got like 11 bazillion of them. But, in this case, if I added it, like it would have gone to Greene County. So if I find Greene right here, that layer would be in here. And even though it's not added to my map, it is still in the C ThinkGIS county folder, or it may be a city folder if you're part of a city, not a county. But that's where all the layers are going to be, whether they're added to your map or not. And kind of you can kind of get into a little confusion there at times because yeah, I've been on plenty of maps that every time a new layer is available, they just add it, whether it has anything to do with what they're doing or not. And what that ends up doing is, like, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this sync. Let's bring the map back up. Is, the map may look like this, just the way that you want it, but when you hit the layer settings, if they're not all categorized, nice, and like if we open up all these categories, as you see, we can scan up and down. But in certain locations, there are counties out there that if between, county departments, city departments, utilities, if they have access to everything, if they added everything, they could have hundreds of layers. So, and without them being categorized or anything, but just scrolling down here, you would scroll forever and ever and ever. Which is why I was like, if it's a layer for something that you're never going to need, it has nothing to do with your department or what you're working on. Yeah, you can just like right here, I'll just click on that potholes layer. I can hit remove, but keep for future use. So if I hit OK, it's gone from the layer settings, and that point is no longer there on the map. But it is still on my computer. I can add it again at any time. But, for this map, for this purpose, it's just not anything I need right now. But if it turned out that, oh, hey, where'd my potholes layer go? I can hit add layer, add an existing layer. It's going to open up, there's the potholes, put it back down there at the bottom, close, and there's that point again for a pothole. So, yeah, I would say, especially if if you're an editor and it gives you the options of, like right there where I had the two options of, yes, delete it, but keep the layer for future use. That keeps it kind of in your folder in your ThinkGIS folder, on your machine for future use. If you hit delete, it's going to delete the layer completely. If you're an editor and it's a layer that you don't own for editing, when you hit delete, the next time you sync, it's going to re-download it and put it back on your machine. So I would just say, rule of thumb, yes, but keep for future use. If it's a layer that you created and you own it for editing, and you hit delete this layer, it's going to delete it from your machine. And at that point, because you own that layer and it's in sync, that's when you'll get that message, like mine pops up saying, you have a deleted, you have a layer with a status of deleted, because the layer is no longer on your machine, but it's still in sync. Yeah, people that create and remove, layers from time to time may get that message saying that, and it is valid. It's a layer that's no longer needed. It's a layer that they deleted. If they're getting that message, call in, talk to one of us, and we can actually, we can delete it from sync so that you no longer get that message. If you're getting that message and you look on your upload page and it's a layer with a status of deleted, and it's a layer that you use, like one that you didn't want deleted, give us a call because we can grab it from sync and put it back on your machine. So that's another good reason to sync. And if you're an editor, a good reason to, add layers to sync is because they're backed up then. If If you do everything on a laptop and laptop, you know, bites the dust, we have a copy of the layers that are on sync. If you have created a layer and have been working on a layer and it was never added to sync, um, hopefully the IT can hopefully IT can get in and maybe retrieve something off the hard drive. But if it's completely dead, then that layer would be gone. There is no backup. Um, so yeah, those things. It is good if it's a layer you're going to be working on, if it's a layer that's important, if it's not just a temporary thing that, you just need for a minute and then you're going to get rid of it. Yeah, it is always good to add it to sync. And Leslie, did you have a question?
We do. What if, hello, what if someone adds a layer to their layer menu there and it has a one in parentheses after it? What does that mean?
That means, so like right here, like if we had potholes and I added it again, it would put a parentheses one next to it. And if I added it again, it would put parentheses two. It means it is a layer with a duplicate layer name. There, there are times that that could be valid. Um, example would be if you have, a map that you're working with that maybe has a layer from a neighboring county that, your county's address layer is called addresses. The neighboring county's layer is called addresses. You would probably categorize them, you know, like base map layers for all of our layers, you know, and then maybe the other counties layers in their county name category. But that because both layers are named addresses, the one for the other county is going to most likely be addresses with a one in parentheses. It just means it's a duplicate layer name.
And what if I can't find a specific layer within the layer? Say I have a whole bunch and I am just not finding it. What's an alternative way to search within that layer settings?
Well, if you can't find it at all, right down here at the bottom, we have a search function. So like right here, if it was addresses, I could just come in here. I'll just type in address and it's going to narrow my search down or narrow my layer settings down. It's going to not show anything that doesn't have address in it. So like right here, address ranges. And it did pull up highways, roads, and addresses here because they're in an addresses category. So yeah, if you do have a map that has, hundreds of layers, and there are cases like that where you have, maps with, multiple counties, multiple cities, all feeding layers in, and we have a ton of categories, and you just have a bazillion layers. That can come in handy because you're like, oh, I need to find such and such parcels. Well, you could just, come down here, type in parcel, and now it just narrows it down and it would just give you the list of anything that has parcel in it. And like right here is we only have one parcels layer on this map, but here it is. Turn it on and you're good. And then once you're done, you can just hit clear and it restores your layer settings. Okay. Were there any other questions on that?
Not on this topic, but we do have one from a prior. Oh, just kidding. One came through.
Okay.
How can I create an attribute table from combining two layers? Example, flood zone layer and parcels layer. I'm guessing they mean classifying.
Oh, if you're going to make, I guess you would say make a layer that you're putting parcels and flood data, like copying it all into, um, I would say give me a call. I can work with you on that. We may need to create a layer, a new layer, um, and create all the fields in that in order to so that we can copy data in. If that's not what you mean, then yeah, let me know, and I'll be happy to have phone call with you, and we can do a remote session and kind of go over everything. But yeah,
Something else to point out for users who are new to the map, you might not have the option to create a layer. That'll be based on whether or not you are an editor or a viewer. You can add a layer, but creating a layer may not be an option. So that would depend on your
yes,
personal settings.
yeah.
We do have a question from earlier in the session, from an earlier hour. What happens with in the layer settings here? There's the SEL button, the select button. How would that come into play? I know I've specifically come across that with aerial photography.
Yes, and I should have covered that earlier. I meant to, but I think that's when we went a little long on time with. But yeah, column all the way over here, edit SEL. That is the selectability, um, which kind of a fun word, tongue twister for those of us with a lisp. Um, yeah, majority of the time they will be checked, kind of highlighted purple. And what that means is that it's selectable. You can click on it. Like right here, parcels. If I check the box, or I guess uncheck it, so now that is grayed out. If I come out onto the map, I click on that parcel, it grabbed the nearest feature, which was an address. I can't click any of the parcels. They are not selectable. And Leslie, as you mentioned, photography. That is, here I'll check that again. So now if I come out, I can click on parcels. Aerial photography should always not be selectable. Yeah, I've been bitten by this myself, helping somebody edit their map and didn't realize, I guess I didn't look, that not only was the photography selectable, but it was also checked for editing. So when I went to, I did a move, drug a window to move an area, and when I moved it over, it moved everything, but it also moved the aerial photography. So yeah, I zoomed back out and there were big gaps in the photography, and yeah, I got it fixed. No worries. Yeah, it was pretty quick, easy fix, but yeah, just not being able to select your photography is a good thing. So I would always recommend not having that selectable. Anything else, is you can have that checked or not. If it's something that that's out on your map that you need to see but would never need to click on it, like photography, you can unselect that, and you should be good. Were there any other questions at the moment?
Maybe just some tool hints at the bottom of the window frame. I don't know if you want to cover on that since we were discussing the buttons within the frame.
Okay.
With like
Yeah. As Leslie mentioned, some of the hints was like this one. If you hover over it, list all areas that contain the point you pick. That's one of the tools that you may or may not use. But if I click on that, click anywhere on the map, it's going to give me as much information as it can find. And it's, every layer that has an area, parcels, corporate boundaries, townships, county boundary, everything that's there, it's going to give a list of. But as Leslie mentioned, just hovering over it kind of gives you a little hint of what it does. Some of the other tools also give you tips on how to do it, or what you should do. Like for example, here I have a button that says split feature, and I made this one myself, and it just says split because we don't actually have a handy dandy button for it. So I just typed it in when I made the button and just called it split. But what this one does is primarily used in utility work. But if so I'll come back, I'll just use my potholes layer that I made earlier, lock it for editing. I'll just do a new feature and call this one number 2. And then we'll just draw a line out here. So if I click on this line that I made, it tells me this is potholes layer and this is feature number 2. And it highlights the whole thing. So if I do an Alt-R, redraw the screen, or I could have hit clear here. If I needed to split this into two different features, maybe that was a pipe size, and right now it says it's a 2-inch, but down here it's, kind of the right half of it is actually 4-inch. I would do a split feature. And so now my cursor says SEL. We've initiated the process of using this tool. But all the way down here at the bottom, it's kind of telling me what I need to do. It'll kind of walk me through it. So you want to kind of take a look at the bottom whenever you're using some of the tools. Not all of the tools do this, but many of them do. But it'll kind of walk you through. So it says like right here, select a polyline to break into 2 features. So this just wants me to pick my polyline. So if I click on it, it highlighted the polyline. So now it says select a breakpoint along that polyline. So it says, where do I want to break the line? So where does it go from 2-inch to 4-inch? So I'll just click just somewhere in the middle. And now it's done. So if I hit clear, it doesn't really look like it did much. However, if I click on the feature, now it says 2, and there it also says 2. But it split it into 2 separate features. So I can double click this one and say, that's not a 2-inch, that's a 4-inch. And hit clear. So now that's a 2, that's a 4. So we split one feature into 2 so that we could rename or change an attribute on one of them. But yeah, as you mentioned, like down along the bottom, kind of in the frame, many of the tools will have a kind of a walkthrough. They'll kind of tell you what to do.
Sounds good. And of course, we'll cover more of that in our editing webinar. Yes. One of the things that is a new feature per the most recent update there, for a little bit there at the bottom of your screen, there was an orange bar. Can you explain what that is about?
Yeah, see, I synced, so I don't have anything. So when syncing, or if you see an orange button down here, it'll stick out like a sore thumb, and it may say updates available. What that means is that if we go to sync, say yes. And say mine again may be slightly different because I'm parts of many groups. It seems like a majority of the time mine does say updates available, but like along here, mine are all either current or with the deleted. So I don't have anything to update. If, and then over here on the next page, um, the ones that are new, yeah, they're not really. When I had the parcels layer that was listed as modified, that's when at the bottom of my map it said updates available in the orange button. But I downloaded it, so it has gone away. If you do have that updates available, you might go ahead and sync, and you may have modified or Maverick files listed there. I have, if you, I mentioned earlier that, on occasion you may have like maybe a program file or one of the layers or something that is a Maverick, but it doesn't automatically checkmark itself to be downloaded. If you manually check that, and then which makes everything on your download page go to current, then that orange updates button will go away. And then as soon as somebody else out in the county maybe updates a parcel or an address or anything like that, that would mean that you know on your downloads layer or page, it now says modified. So that button's going to pop up on your map, and people do update constantly. So you may get that orange button pop up quite often. But I would venture to say, sync as often as you can. It keeps everything up to date. Make sure that you're looking at current data. Um, I know because I'm an editor and I, do a lot, I sync daily. Most editors, I would imagine, sync daily. And again, just to make sure that, anything that they've worked on or updated is on sync for everybody else to see, and it's backed up. Because yeah, anything that you've done that hasn't been synced and, you know, it's just on your machine, if they're, hopefully there's, don't experience this, but I know a lot of places have like a lightning strike that hits a building, you know, somehow finds its way through and zaps the computer. If it was your computer that got zapped, and you hadn't synced and the machine's fried, yeah, anything that, we can restore your map and get it back to the last save point, which is like where you synced last, and we can restore that. So there may be some things you have to redo, which would be why I would say, sync often. And like I said, especially, for anyone looking, at addresses, if there's a lot of addresses going in, lots of changes, it just ensures that you're looking at the most current data.
Good deal. We do have another question, and then I think we'll open the floor for if anybody wants to unmute themselves. When working with aerial photography, and navigating through the map, I know some counties kind of get bogged down with the files being so big. How can you toggle on and off the aerial photography with a shortcut?
Okay, let me cancel this. Let's go back to the map. Okay, so let's zoom in. Let's see. Oop. So with the layer settings, so this particular county, like, I currently only have one set of photography and like elevation. They actually have elevation data. I know whenever I'm editing, a majority of the time I have the photography turned off. So I kind of look at the map like if I was doing parcel work, for example, I may be looking at it like this. And because photography is the first layer coming down, that would line up with number 1 on your keyboard. Not on the number pad, but kind of across the top. So kind of upper left-hand corner. So if I hit number 1, that's going to turn on my photography. And it's going to turn it on until I move the mouse. If I pan or anything. So if I'm zooming in here and I'm like doing some work, I could hit number 1 and it's going to pull up the photography. But as soon as I pan or zoom in, zoom out, it's off. So it's kind of a way to temporarily turn it on. But if you have multiple layers of photography, like maybe you have the current, like maybe you have 2026 photography already, and then your previous was 2023, and before that you had 2020. If you have all of those on your map, then you can, with them turned off, if they were, 1, 2, and 3 in your layer settings at the top, then you could hit number 1 to see this one, the number 2 to see the next one, and number 3 to see the next one. So you can, I know, like as far as assessors' offices and everything, you can see buildings pop up and go away, and subdivisions are there, and where it was just woods. But like right here, their second one is elevation data. So I can just kind of, looks crazy, but yeah. So just an example, I can hit number 1 for photography, 2 for elevation. If we zoom out a little farther, you can kind of, you know, see you see the river and the elevation changes there. But yeah, number 1, number 2. But hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. I believe we're caught up with the questions. I think we'll open the floor if anybody wants to unmute their mics, ask some questions. Doesn't necessarily have to be sync related. It could be about anything we've covered here today. And if you don't want to unmute your mic, feel free to type in the Q&A tab, and we'll be on the lookout for anything coming in.
Well, I guess if we don't have any questions at the moment, I think that should about wrap it up. But yeah, if anybody has any questions over anything I went over today, or anything I didn't go over, by all means, feel free to contact us, and either myself or anybody in service will be happy to help.
And if, we did get a question earlier that seemed to pertain to a special project. If you do have a special project within your county, reach out to us, because we may have already done some work in a neighboring county or another county that might be structured similarly that we could pull from. We did just have a question come through, and it is loading, so bear with me.
Sure.
Oh, it's taking its sweet time. It's just loading. I'm going to close out the Q&A and I will pop it back open and see if it will refresh. Technology is great when it works.
Absolutely.
I got nothing now. The whole Q&A
yeah.
disappeared. I don't know, Jason, if you can open your Q&A and if it'll load for you. It is completely gone now. Okay. Nope. No. Just a comment. It finally loaded. It was a comment, not a question. So I think we are good to go, unless there's anything else you can think of you'd like to cover, Jason.
No, I think I covered everything that I had. But as I said, yeah, anybody has anything, just let us know.
Yes. Well, thank you for going over the information to help users become more familiar with features that we have to offer here at WTH. Just a friendly reminder then to watch for the email with the survey link and the recording of what we learned here in today's session. As always, any input and feedback is greatly appreciated. You can review on our website by navigating back to the registration page, where that link will soon be turned into a view link, and the video will soon be posted. If for some reason your company's firewall doesn't allow the email to come through, feel free to reach out to a WTH staff member and we can send you the links directly. Thank you for joining us today in our first extended webinar session. We hope you've learned a lot and enjoyed the topics we've covered here today, and hopefully we will see you in future sessions. Thank you from your friends here at WTH Technology.